So China's facing a demographic time bomb and really needs to increase the retirement age for China. Right now, most workers in state-owned enterprises retire at age 50 for women, 55 for men. But the average life expectancy in China is actually longer here than it is in the United States. So Chinese workers need to work for another 10, 15 years minimum longer. So I expect the Chinese government is going to raise the minimum age for retirement to 60, 65 in the next several years in order to keep getting enough people to work and pay into the pension system. I think the biggest issue that's hitting the birth rate in China right now is the lack of confidence and uncertainty about the future. I mean, China went through 4 very difficult years during COVID, where most people faced salary cuts, job cuts, and now with the weak equity markets and the collapsing real estate market, a lot of Chinese feel that they're facing a lost decade of economic income levels. And so they just don't feel that they can afford to raise a kid in such a competitive market and be able to pay for the child to have good health care and good education. So a lot of younger Chinese are taking a wait and see attitude and hoping, maybe 2-3 years from now, the income market and the real estate sector is going to be a little bit different and they might be able to afford a child. But right now, many young people are telling us they simply don't have the confidence for their economic futures to be able to raise a child in this economic and political climate. So over the last 10 years, the number of annual marriages have dropped from 13.5 million in China to 6.8 million in 2022. So almost a 50% drop. Now this is due because China faced more draconian zero COVID measures in 2022 than anywhere else in the world. At one point, 300-400 million Chinese were locked down in their homes. I was locked down for almost 3 months where you literally could not leave your house unless you were being forced to take a COVID test. So the number of marriages has dropped dramatically, which is causing an aging population. You don't see a rebound, and I don't expect a rebound anytime soon because so many younger Chinese are worried and frustrated over their economic futures. We didn't see a rebound in the economy in China after zero COVID ended, like we saw in Europe or the United States when COVID restrictions there ended and the economy soared. Salaries are about 30 to 50% lower this year for starting salaries for college grads than they were just 5 years ago. So a lot of younger people in their 20s, when we interview them, say they never want to get married or they want to get married later on because they just don't feel hopeful about their incomes and the peace and quality of life in China. The world should be worried about China's economic slowdown. It's going to impact the profits of the world's largest companies. When Chinese consumers are cutting back on their spending, that's going to impact the Starbucks, the Nikes, the Apples of the world, because China has been their largest market or their second largest market in the world after the United States over the last 10 years. So you see Apple's facing a lot of rough times because their sales in January have probably dropped 20% year over year. And so that's going to impact, Apple's profits and share prices. So people need to be cautious about that.